distinguished guests. Probably it's more appropriate to tell you welcome aboard, because we have a Navy-orientated panel, so welcome. It's probably more deck than a panel. And I will start to a very short presentation. You have a larger presentation of our guest speakers of today in your program, so I will be short to save time, and I will start with admirals, and we are pleased to have here in our panel Rear Admiral Georgios Floros, Deputy Chief of Hellenic Navy, General Staff, Greece. Thank you very much, Admiral, for your presence and your future presentation. Vice Admiral Mihai Painait, Chief of Naval Forces, Romania. Thank you very much, Admiral, for your presence. Mr. Matthew Boyce, Senior Fellow, former Deputy Assistant Secretary responsible for Central Europe of the State Department, USA. Admiral retired Igor Habanenko, former Deputy Minister of Defense, Ukraine. And Mr. James Bergeron, Political Advisor, NATO, Markham, USA. And Mr. Alexander Shambrai, Sales Director, Damanship, Romania. Thank you very much for your presence. I will start with just one remark. It's extraordinary. We are talking about freedom of navigation in the Black Sea and strategic stakes. What I can say is freedom of navigation in the Black Sea, it's older than history, because more than 2,500 years ago, ancient Greek sailors discovered Black Sea and the huge potential economically and strategically speaking of Black Sea resources. So it's a lot of time, but history never changes. So I'm the pleasure to invite you, Mr. Admiral Flores. The floor is yours for a short presentation, and then we'll have discussion and debates.
Okay. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And I have to say it's a great pleasure to be here. So far I have seen many distinguished speakers and attendees from different national and international entities of many organizations. So this adds a special value to this forum. So, the Black Sea. The Black Sea historically comprises a crossroad of civilizations and the key strategic waterway for international trade and transportation of energy resources as well. The Black Sea holds a unique geopolitical importance. However, since 2014, the situation in the Black Sea has been particularly tensed due to the illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia and the ongoing war in Ukraine. During this war, Russia has disrupted the sea lines of communication, the so-called SLOCs, to and from Ukrainian ports using a combination of hybrid tactics, such as mining the approaches of the ports of Western Ukraine, attacking ships and also destroying ports and maritime infrastructure. Russia's methods include the harassment of commercial shipping, the seizure of Ukrainian vessels, and the imposition of arbitrary restrictions on maritime traffic. Massive missile and UAV strikes have damaged more than 26 Ukrainian port infrastructure and facilities, as well as a large number of merchant vessels. Because of these actions, supply has been disrupted, mainly of grains and other goods directed to the global markets. Furthermore, Russia has developed and used extensively capabilities such as GPS jamming, AIS spoofing, communication jamming, electronic interference, and cyber warfare that pose a serious threat to shipping as well as in maritime facilities and energy facilities as well. It is imperative that we understand the gravity of this situation and the consequences of jeopardizing freedom of navigation in this vital region. Freedom of navigation in the Black Sea is not just a matter of convenience. It is a fundamental principle that underpins global stability and prosperity. The Black Sea serves as a crucial maritime route for trade, energy, and military movement between Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Disruption to the freedom of navigation in these waters has far-reaching consequences not only for the countries directly involved, but for the global community as a whole. Aforementioned actions not only violate international law, but also undermine the stability and security of the entire region. The stakes are high. If we fail to act, the consequences could be dire. Disruption of freedom of navigation in the Black Sea could lead to increased tensions in other parts of the world, economic instability, and even conflicts. It is therefore imperative that we take concrete steps to address the issue. Primarily, we should provide any possible assistance to the Black Sea littoral states to ensure safety of navigation that is in danger due to the drifting mines that have been spread all over the sea. Mine countermeasures initiatives should be endorsed by the Alliance and Member States. Secondly, we must strengthen the security architecture in the Black Sea region. This includes support to Ukraine in order to enhance its maritime capabilities. We should reaffirm our commitment to the international law and the principle of freedom of navigation. All countries, regardless of their size or power, must respect the rights of others to navigate freely in international waters. We must also continue engaging in diplomatic efforts to find an effective resolution to the war in Ukraine. The Minsk agreements provide a framework for ending this and restoring Ukraine's territorial integrity. The international community must redouble its efforts to ensure that these agreements are to be finally implemented. Last but not least, we must further work towards confidence-building measures in the Black Sea region by rescheduling and resuming joint military exercises and pursuing increased communication between our naval forces, also in the context of NATO. That can definitely help to prevent misunderstandings and miscalculations and should deliver the right message. In conclusion, the strategic and operational stakes of freedom of navigation in the Black Sea are high. It is essential that we recognize the importance of this issue and take concrete steps to address it. This is not just a matter of national interest, but the global imperative. Working together will ensure that the Black Sea remains a region of peace, stability, and prosperity for generations to come. So I'm done here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Admiral Panait. It's your turn. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor. I am honored to be in this forum. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I prepare a short presentation. I am trying to respect the time. In 5 minutes, I would like to, I don't know, we have the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it's only this. I am trying to present some issue regards the Black Sea security. We are living in a very complex period of time, and speaking about the Black Sea security is not, I'm trying to. Okay, this is the agenda. After started the war in our area of responsibility in the Black Sea basin, the security situation changed dramatically. We are trying to understand how can find the best solution in order to keep the balance in this very important region, to understand better what is the means of the word of peace, for example. Speaking about the biggest threat in the Black Sea area, right now we have 101 drifting mines discovered and destroyed. That means it's a big number of mines, and we are trying to present what is the biggest threat in our area of responsibility. Speaking about the unmanned system vehicles, this is the second important threat in our area of responsibility because every day and almost every night the Russians attack the Ukrainian harbors, speaking about the Ren and Ismail. Even for us, for Romanian Navy, it's a big challenge in order to protect our area of responsibility in the Danube Delta. Another important issue is that right now in the Black Sea we have more than 40 vessels sunk. That means it's a big risk in terms of pollution. Speaking about the Russian fleet, till now 33 military vessels, warship was destroyed by the Ukrainians. That means we can understand better what is the importance of the drone system in this period of time and for the future conflicts too. Another important issue that I would like to underline is the freedom of navigation. That means we have to establish some rules. We have to respect rules in order to protect this kind of freedom of navigation. In the context when, after the Second World War, in our area of responsibility in the Black Sea, for the first time we have more than 300 vessels every day. This kind of commercial vessels, they are transiting our area of responsibility from north to south or from south to north in order to keep the trade open in order to transport the cereals through the cereal corridor. Drone attacks on Ukrainians' Danube ports is not the single threat against the Ukrainians' harbors. We have the same danger speaking about the commercial vessels underway than they are underway in the cereal corridor too. This is the impact of the conflict on Black Sea shipping routes. You can easily observe that it changed significantly after started the war. The impact of the maritime critical infrastructure is another important point because in our area of responsibility, speaking about the economic exclusive zone, we discover we have important gas resources and we have to be able to protect this important infrastructure and these important resources for today and for tomorrow too. Speaking about the Navy's upgrade, integrating new technologies, we are trying to modernize our Navy. We already signed important programs in the last 2 years, but we have another important programs for this year and for the next period of time too. It's important for us to keep the Euro-Atlantic engagements, to keep the battle in the national missions, and at the same time to modernize our fleet, our forces for the future. Speaking about the future of the maritime domain, we are trying to develop very important maritime drone systems, and in this regard we are trying to understand the philosophy during this kind of conferences. For example, we organize every year in the Romanian Navy one conference in order to develop this kind of understanding, and after that organizing exercises in order to put in practice the principles, the theory, in order to reduce the difference between theory and practice. Another important element is the MCM Black Sea. The Admiral Floros underlined this initiative. It's a very important trilateral initiative. It's open to the NATO partners, and we are ready to sign the papers at the level of the Navy commanders at the end of the month of June in Istanbul. Increased trust and cooperation. I would like to underline that today our frigate Regina Maria is under the European Union flag in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Med Sea, in order to be part in IRINI operation with organic helo on board and special operation forces. And this is the first important mission abroad, operation abroad for the Romanian Navy. This year we will be the flagship for the SNMCMG2, that means Standing Naval Mine Countermeasures Group 2, NATO group for 6 months in the Med Sea, in the Black Sea, and in the Aegean Sea. It's the second time when Romanian Navy, Romania, assumed this kind of big challenge. And in the second semester, our frigate Regele Ferdinand will be under NATO flag at the time in Operation Sea Guardian. I would like to underline that at the end of the day, it's very important for us to accomplish the whole missions in order to keep the freedom of navigation in our area of responsibility. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation, Admiral. We will stay with the Navy, and I am going to invite Admiral Habanenko. Please, it's your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for invitation to take part in this important event. It's my great honor to be here and speak in front of such professional audience. And in my short briefing, let me start with clarification, but quite often in assessments and forecasts of the ongoing Russian aggression against Ukraine. We focus on the land domain. But the Ukrainian occupied Crimea in 2014 and just launched military aggression, large-scale military aggression against Ukraine in 2022, with the key goal of achieving dominance in the Black Sea basin. The sea-related part of the ongoing Russian military aggression has a clear historical roots, at the same time is hidden in the nature. Not obvious from the point of view of Moscow's real goals, but from my perspective, it quite largely determines the course and outcome of the entire war. However, as often has happened in history, the initiators of this war received something that they did not plan or expect. In this regard, it is important to note that if asymmetrical, mosquito-like activity at sea, Ukraine shaped the contours of revolutionary changes of naval operations in the continental sea, thus developing the concept of Sir Julian Corbett, British naval historian and geostrategist. This struggle for sea lines controlled by asymmetric means became the main leitmotif of Ukraine's operations at sea. A new and distinctive aspect of the Ukrainian approach is the use of small sea drones operating under remote control from a significant distance. Kyiv uses these USVs in combination with other standoff weapons. This approach demonstrates cost effectiveness in protecting Ukraine's sea lines by interfering with Moscow's ability to carry out the necessary movements of manpower, munition, and goods by sea. Ukraine's asymmetrical operations at sea broke the Russian naval blockade of the Odessa region and allowed Ukraine to move southward, inflicting disproportionate losses on Russian naval potential. Based on possible positive results achieved in sea control and sea denial activity, Ukrainian activity. Ukraine reopened its littoral grain corridor. It was done in August 2023 without Russia, which unilaterally terminated, well-known, the Black Sea Grain Initiative. This one-way maritime corridor has allowed Ukraine to deliver larger volumes of grain and goods than on the mentioned grain deal. More than 1,300 merchant vessels have already passed through the new sea route, transporting about 40 million tons of cargo to many countries. In this January, Ukraine reached the pre-war, let me stress on this, pre-war volume of exports by sea. If you look at the cargo flow through the Danube ports, then it increased 6 times compared to the pre-war figures. Ukraine, in cooperation with Romania, expects to increase the export from Ukrainian ports along the Danube to 4,000 tons per month. Such positive dynamics become possible thanks to the strong Ukrainian and political will and Romanian political will and improvement of land, river, and sea transport capabilities of both friendly states. At the same time, indicators evidence that created by Moscow maritime threats are evolving, while raising the stakes for freedom of navigation in the Black Sea. What is not exist as free per se. It needs to be ensured. What should be done by us under these circumstances? Let me propose at least 2 things. First of all, our common interest of using the Black Sea maritime transport corridors require to create a joint the Black Sea naval strategy. This is not a new idea, but based on lessons learned, lessons identified and learned. Such a strategy is supposed to be based on non-classical thinking and synergy of symmetry and asymmetry towards a shared mission objective. Secondly, in this war, resources, funds, and technologies are on the west side. This advantage should be used timely and comprehensively from my perspective, but not only concentrate efforts on providing sufficient number of different combat means, both manned and unmanned, but also include advanced military training to guarantee efficient manned-unmanned teaming. So I'm confident that with right naval strategy and result-oriented capabilities, we can ensure freedom of navigation in the Black Sea basin and, at the end, win the war at sea. I think we need to gain momentum. We means together. Let me stop here and leave time for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Admiral. As you said, freedom of navigation in Black Sea means also freedom of navigation on Danube River also, which is crucial. So we are going further. Let me invite you, Mr. James Bergeron, Political Advisor, NATO Markham, USA.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. At one point, Markham is actually outside London. I'm originally from the USA. Well, greetings, everyone. It's an honor to be on the panel. Things are moving so fast, and we are at an inflection point in the war. Ukraine's defense itself, the Allied position in the Black Sea, the Allied position with Russia. But a moment of context before we get there. It's 10 years since Russian special forces went into Crimea. And that was a bit of a paradigm shift for the West that had before that seen the Black Sea, as its old Greek name implied, as the most peaceable sea of all of the seas of NATO's AOR. It wasn't actually true, but that was the way it was thought about. And that was a major shift. But I would argue that the more major shift, and the one that just broke in the last year, goes back to 2004. And this is when Romania and Bulgaria joined NATO. along with the Baltic states. And the Black Sea's nature changed in a way that Russia never accepted. And if you look at most of their naval action over all the intervening years, you can put it down to a statement that the Black Sea is still ours. The efforts of Ukraine, backed by its partners, but with great effort, have actually broken that assumption with the Russian Navy sheltering in Novorossiysk. It's been a remarkable change, and I'll get to it in a minute, the number of ways they tried to assert that dominance and largely failed to assert that dominance at sea. Now, the war is on land, but the sea war and everything that implied really changed. In 2016, NATO launched Tailored Forward Presence, which was a desire to increase our deterrent posture in the Black Sea. Between 2016 and 2021, there was really a quite remarkable number of non-regional warships in the Black Sea, respecting Montreux, but constantly cycling through. That wound down at the end of 2021, and since then there have not been non-regional warships in the Black Sea. By choice, a NATO view about the early stages about escalation. But that doesn't mean that the Black Sea was undefended. Of course, there is no replacement for surface power. But we also had, in the first few months after the conflict broke out in 2022, one particular moment in May of 2022, 4 carrier strike groups, all within range to be effective in conflict should conflict break out. The American carrier in the Adriatic, within striking distance of the Black Sea, the Charles de Gaulle in the Eastern Med, within striking distance of the Black Sea, the Cavour with its 5th generation fighters in the Central Med, within striking distance, and the Prince of Wales to cover the northern part, north of Iceland. So to turn a statement we hear around, what happens outside the Black Sea can have an impact in the Black Sea, and our Russian friends, I'm sure, noticed that. So we have kept this focus. MARCOM also plugs itself deeply into maritime situational awareness in the Black Sea, works very, very closely with the allies, and we are in the process, it's not done yet, but we are in the process of building a much more robust coordination and set of command relationships based upon the family of plans that was approved in Vilnius, proposals that will go to the heads of state and government in Washington that will strengthen this posture. Now, 2 points. Will non-regional allied ships return to the Black Sea? Yes, clearly they will. There was never an intent to stay out for good. We will return when it's strategically right. There have been interesting benefits to the current situation. We've been, as I said, in terms of high-level striking power, we never lost it. But the Russians, on the other hand, watched their Mediterranean squadron in Tartus wither on the vine, because they would not send them back to the Black Sea. Under Montreux, they couldn't come out again. And so, in fact, their presence in the Med was substantially weakened. It is, just to close on the issue of freedom of navigation and where we stand. The first thing to remember, and we sometimes forget, that when we talk about freedom of navigation, it's almost a maritime security paradigm, like piracy. This is a region at war. So the issues are going to be very different. Let me jump to a different set of notes. In the beginning of the war, Russia began by attacking merchant ships. Let's not lose the implications of that. We haven't seen this since, well, certainly World War II, when it was most prevalent. The notion that war at sea would return to attacks on commerce came rolling back into the 21st century. That was a major shock. But notice that after the first rubbles of the first year or so, the attacks on Ukrainian non-grain commercial shipping, no. Attacks on Russian commercial shipping, no. Both sides reached a bit of an equilibrium on this, so that part of freedom of navigation is happening, basically on the basis of a standoff and Ukraine's significant capabilities. You sent the right signal. Then there was the grain initiative, and the Admiral has said it very, very well. But it was a remarkable thing. The Russians tried to strangle it. They attacked the Danube ports. They went slow. They go slow. They went slow on the grain initiative. Came back when it was working without them. Slowed it down again, and then left. But what has happened in the interim with the humanitarian corridor, with Ukraine's substantial anti-access area denial capabilities they've built in the Western Black Sea, and the efforts of Romania and Ukraine to open up a really substantial grain corridor to the north, we're about, in terms of shipping volumes, we're between the two corridors, we're about where we were before the war. That is remarkable, and again, another failure on the Russian side to exercise that dominance. Those mines are a threat, although we need to remember they were a World War I threat. There are far more sophisticated mines out there that are smart and moored and waiting to go off where the right signals appear. But these are really good in terms of sowing contestation and deep concern. They need to be cleared. The MCM agreement that was reached between XIIa, Romania, and Bulgaria was hugely welcome, and I think a platform for future developments in this area. Would NATO be involved in a mine clearance operation when we have a cessation of conflict? The answer is maybe. That's a decision for heads of state and government. It would make sense given our expertise, but we shall see. It'll probably end up turning on the language of a UN Security Council resolution. And finally, that basic, I want to go back to that, what I started with, that basic shift in paradigm, which is that the Russians cannot possibly imagine that they dominate the water space of the Black Sea right now. That's going to be a major change for them. They need new ships. The ships of the Black Sea Fleet were still largely pretty old. They were not very well defended. Consider the parallel between what's happened, the success of the Ukrainian armed forces in pushing the Black Sea Fleet east and out, almost out of action, and the inability of the Houthis to strike warships and increasingly commercial ships in the Red Sea. Technology does make a difference, but the Russians know they don't have it. Not in this, not yet. One thing I will prophesy, and it's just me saying it, by the way, all of this is just me saying it, is that whoever runs the Kremlin in the future, this strategic defeat will weigh heavy with them. They'll be saying to themselves, never again, and they will be rebuilding. And so there is, just to conclude, there is going to be a continuing need for Allied naval presence in the Black Sea, for the bolstering of regional naval capability, the clearance of the mines, effective strategic communications, and on the final point, because our conventional deterrence, at least in defense of allies, our conventional deterrence is really high, I believe, and everything that's happened in the Black Sea, Russia will turn, as it usually does, to the gray space, to the hybrid space, and we will see intensive conflict, intensive harassment of energy infrastructure, undersea cables, everything that they can do to try to maintain their equities in a situation where their conventional equities have been bruised. And with that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm going further. Mr. Matthew Boyce, please.
Thank you. What an honor to be on this, sharing the panel with such distinguished naval experts. I'm the only non-Navy guy here, and I've seen my former boss in the front row from Commander U.S. Army Europe. I'm sort of more in that category. But I think maybe the reason I was invited was because I wrote a paper with George and Scutaro and Antonia Kolobasanu and Mihailo Samus, which is entitled "The Battle of the Black Sea," which I guess is the subject today. So I look at this actually partially from a maritime domain, but also perspective, but also from a regional perspective. In other words, this for me is partially of course obviously about the Black Sea itself, but also about the larger region, and that's the approach that we took in the paper. You can get a copy outside; they're lying around if you wish to read it. It's a little bit on the long side, but it's got a lot of great maps and some interesting I think some interesting observations. So what can I say that hasn't already been said? I mean, the situation obviously. The war Russia's war against Ukraine has obviously very seriously negatively affected freedom of navigation in the Black Sea itself. Although grain exports may be back to sort of where they were pre-22, the air traffic and the sea traffic, as we saw from the map, those patterns have changed very significantly. There have been, of course, 10 conflicts and wars of wars since 1991 in the Black Sea region. Although the Black Sea itself, the maritime part, was fairly free and open until around 2014, of course, with the exception of 2008 when the Russians took over the Georgian EEZ. But now there are large parts of the Black Sea where ships don't ply and planes don't fly. It's just it's a very different, and the geopolitical stakes are really very high here. So what happens in the Black Sea affects the entire region, all the littoral states, etc. So this is something that we think is very important. I mean, you have of course the viability of Ukraine as a sovereign, independent state living within its internationally recognized borders, of course, which is obviously a very big deal. And of course, that is not the case anymore after 2014. So we have to deal with that. We have to deal with the food aspect, which of course may be not now kind of back to where it was, but that's still I don't think we can take that for granted forever. So that actually, just think of all the political instability that can engender, did engender and can in the future. Now we also have the energy aspect, all the energy resources that Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, and Ukraine have that actually would really benefit the European security picture, which is something that. Obviously, this is a huge deal from a geopolitical standpoint, geoeconomic standpoint. So we have to this is also disrupted because it's a lot harder or it's riskier. To drill and then all the associated investment costs, et cetera. When you see ships that the Romanian chief of naval operations showed and how close their ships are going to those 4 drilling platforms in the Black Sea. So you have that. Then you have the whole issue of connectivity. And to the middle corridor, which is and all the cables and the et cetera that traverse the Black Sea. That is of course of vital importance, and the whole geopolitical sort of the location of the Black Sea, even although it's not of the same order of magnitude as the South China Sea in terms of sea traffic, or the Straits of Malacca, or the Red Sea in terms of global trade. It is an incredibly important area. Anyway, and it's one of the reasons why the State Department actually wrote a Black Sea strategy. It doesn't have a Red Sea strategy. It doesn't have a Straits of Malacca strategy, but it does have a Red Sea strategy. Now, of course, I'll go into that in a minute. But here you have this, you have this, you have that factor, and then you also have this whole question of the fact that Russia is can still use Crimea as a platform from which to threaten Ukraine itself, but the whole region theoretically, because there are an awful lot of assets that are still there. Its naval assets may be sort of parked now in Novorossiysk or on the bottom of the Black Sea, or injured or damaged, but there's still an awful lot of assets on that on occupied Crimea that we think we need to remember. And so here you have this. So even though this is getting back to the whole question of why the United States actually is even thinking about a Black Sea strategy. I mean, the one that was proposed or presented to the Congress last October was a modest attempt. It was rather late, but it was a modest attempt. And it's always better to have a strategy than not to have a strategy, even if it's modest and even if it sort of repeats a lot of well-known sort of stuff, even if it isn't, even if it didn't come with an awful lot of new resources, et cetera. I mean, it was at least a start. And the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act of last December, has now tasked a whole of government strategy, which is something which is, because no strategy towards the Black Sea is really complete without a whole of government, unless it's a whole of government approach, because State Department is fine, but obviously this has a massive military dimension to it as well, and of course you can't sort of just look at all these things in isolation. So it would be good to see more, focus on similar Black Sea strategies by other EU/NATO member states. It would be, I think, some of the things that we're seeing so far with regard to the mine agreement that Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey entered into. It would be great to see that actually start to really show some fruit, because it took a while to get to that, and now that it's there, I think it would be a strong vote of confidence that things are moving in the right direction if more were to be known about that, because not as much has trickled out into the public domain as far as that's concerned. There's a whole lot of other things that we could talk about, I suppose, but I'm conscious of the time, and I think I may have gone over my 5 minutes, so perhaps I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Time is our enemy, not our ally. I'm going to speaking about capabilities. We have a shipbuilding here, Damen, and I invite Mr. Shamrai to take the floor.
As it was mentioned by my predecessor, time is running out, but I will try to be short. It's an honor for me to be here to participate in this honored panel with representation of top level from multiple navies. Stakes are huge. There is an active war around the corner. Time is running out. So I think it's clear for everybody that we have to do something. It is a required strategic cooperation between navies and us, representation of business, to develop and activate required fleet, as it was mentioned, to secure freedom of navigation in this region. Strategic program is required. We are a family-owned company with a history of almost 100 years old. We have a representation in Romania with multiple assets, with shipyards, with design companies, where we can provide full cycle, life cycle for our products, that we can not only design and build them, but also provide after maintenance for our fleet here. One of our key business focus is defense and security, where we can build the entire diversified portfolio of the vessel required for this domain. It was mentioned about mosquito fleet approach that is being discussed by multiple navies these days. We have solution for this. We have in our portfolio combatants, auxiliary vessels in our shipyard in Romania, by Romanians, honored Romanians. We are building fleet for NATO, for non-NATO countries. At the moment, you are invited to visit our location in Galați. You can see that we're building combat support ships for Dutch Navy. We're building military OPVs. We are about to start to build first unique vessel, a multi-purpose support ship as drone carrier for Portuguese Navy. We are about to start steel cutting in a few months for anti-submarine warfare frigates for NATO countries. So we have all these capabilities here in Romania, and we are the only one. We are a unique company which last 30 years delivered a complete military navy vessel being built here in Romania, designed by Romanians, built by Romanians, and delivered by Romanians. Of course, we are very honored to cooperate with our Romanian clients. For freedom of navigation, we delivered recently multiple projects, being offshore patrol vessels, coastal patrol vessels, search and rescue vessels, firefighting vessels. They're all working in Black Sea, and last year we had sea trials, and it is an honor to see our fleet patrolling the coast of Black Sea from Romanian side. But there are a lot of threats still they exist, and deterioration of navigation since 2014, as it was mentioned, influence not only one country, but the entire region, the entire world. So we have to act. Time is running out, and that is why we have to combine our efforts together. and start doing something and make sure that we return back to freedom of navigation in this region, because Romania, through Daman, has unique capabilities to design, build, and deliver whatever product is required to secure this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Of course, Black Sea is global, and we noticed all what it happened when the grain routes were blocked by Russia, and all the prices, food prices in all the world risen, and all the population has to pay for this. And of course, there are some positive developments in the Black Sea, as you mentioned before. 33 Russian ships sunk by Ukrainian forces. You do not have a navy, but you managed to win in this part of war in the Black Sea. The war is fight in the Black Sea, not in other parts. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. General, please, it's, if you have a question, please address this. Please.
Of course, Ukraine does have a navy, it's just not in the conventional sense. There are sailors of the Ukrainian Navy that still serve. Two quick questions. First to Admiral Flores. The so-called dark fleet or shadow fleet, it doesn't seem that anything is being done to stop Russia's export of illegal oil using ships that are not properly marked or not in compliance with international law. So, I mean, but all of them have to pass either through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, or they're passing through the Danish Straits. Why does it feel like we're powerless? And to Jim Bergeron, who's in charge of the Black Sea from NATO? What's the command structure? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. First of all, about the ships in the Dark Fleet, like you said. Well, they take advantage of the freedom of navigation. Okay, I mean, they have navigational rights, so they travel freely. But I don't know if you have heard. Recently, we had some developments. We tried to stop some Russian tankers exchanging oil very close to the coast of Peloponnese. We had noticed that this was an ongoing operation, but it was happening in international waters. So we didn't have, the right to intervene. So what we did was that we closed the gulfs in the south part of Peloponnese with exercise areas. We issued naftexes. So we forced them to exit this area. So we have to, my answer to this is we have to think unconventionally if we want to deal with an unconventional, let's say, threat or practice. That's what we did. And I think that it had an effect. I mean, the naval presence there, which was not, it was not a fake presence. So, I mean, we actually went there. I mean, we deployed naval vessels along with Coast Guard, and we drove them away from our coasts. I mean, that's what we did.
Thank you. Further questions, please. You have an answer. Excuse me.
That's all right.
I didn't notice.
Who's in charge of the Black Sea? The multiple answers to that question. Answer number one, not Russia. Answer number two, I'd be reluctant to try to put a label. We have this debate in the Baltic about it being a NATO lake. And I'm sorry. There's a debate in the Baltic about being a NATO lake, and we avoid that, I think, wisely, because that sends a signal about one party claiming kind of water space ownership over an entire region, which is probably unproductive and would have interesting Pacific consequences as well. But to answer your question, what's the C2? Who's in charge in the Black Sea? At present, it's NATO under MARCOM for naval assets under the operational control of NATO. The national assets under operational control, and then nations, the national navies directing their own business. At the level, though, of coordination, who is the operational hub of the maritime in the Black Sea? That's MARCOM. If you add the command structure and the coordination role that everyone looks to MARCOM to do, we are doing that. But that's the present. And although I can't get into details, what we're proposing into Washington, to the Washington summit, is that there will be a much greater integration of national forces and NATO forces, national command and coordination, and NATO command and coordination in the model to come. The family of plans are classified, but I think one can say this. The fundamental change is we're moving away from the old planning system that assumed if NATO had a conflict, it would be with an adversary in one small parcel of the alliance area of responsibility, and our NATO response force, one force to attack in one place at one time, very small. Now we recognize that if it's a conflict with Russia, you're going to have to defend everywhere, and you're going to have to galvanize and energize the vast bulk of national resources across the alliance to do it. So the new model was much, you saw the numbers coming out of Vilnius, the new force models, force commitments, they're massive. How do you direct them? Well, that's what we're proposing in Washington will hope to deliver.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the whole panel for the very insightful discussion here. I'm Colonel Mihai Stier. I'm with the foreign military. I'm retired right now and currently an associate expert with New Strategy Center. My question is related to what just has already been touched here. It's about the critical infrastructure in the Black Sea, actually the offshore critical infrastructure. And why is that? Another New Strategy Center project recently addressed this topic into TTX format in March, held in Constanța. And one of which involved around 60 participants from 11 nations. And one of the conclusions of the discussion, three-day discussion there in Constanța in late March, was that we need freedom of navigation in the Black Sea in order to support the economical developments in the region. I'm referring to, and we were referring to the oil extraction platforms, and it's well known the huge interest Romania has in developing those. And not only another project important discussed was the Georgian-Romanian underwater cable to be constructed in a near future. My question is to the panel, and would definitely your answers will definitely enrich the exercise final report. Can we envisage multinational cooperation initiatives, developments for ensuring and
please, we
reaching...
have just 1 minute for a short answer. So,
sure.
Excuse me, we do not have time. This is the major problem. So, if you have an answer for your question in a minute, please.
Just briefly, I attended a meeting in Brussels yesterday chaired by the Secretary General, the first stakeholder meeting for the senior stakeholders on CUI. One thing I will say is there was a broad consensus around the room that although most of the issues up till now have been in the Baltic, the challenge is wider. The Black Sea was mentioned, the Med was mentioned. There is a strong NATO interest in ensuring energy security, critical undersea security, offshore wind farms and the rest. In all of the strategic seas of NATO, including the Black Sea. We know that Russia will go for the energy weapon, they always do. What we do need to do is to especially try to find out how we're going to protect and help do this in the gray zone space. They're not likely to conduct an attack so egregious that we're in an Article 5 situation. They'll prefer to stay below that level, which is a wicked problem to address, and that's the problem we need to address.
Thank you very much. We have the set sailors of this panel. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your questions, and see you to the next panel, the strategic importance of the Black Sea. Why do we need the free and open Black Sea in a few minutes? Thank you. Applause our participants.